Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And I want to talk to you today about this Puffy trial, but I want to preface this particular video about the puppet masters that are controlling the entertainment and music business industry in particular. And two of the biggest names that come to immediate mind would be Jimmy Iovine from Interscope Records, who funded and helped start Death Row Records with Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and of course Tupac eventually had joined Death Row Records. So Death Row was a subsidiary of Interscope, and Clive Davis, 93-year-old Jewish lawyer, he started, helped fund Bad Boy Records. And I want to go through Clive Davis's relationship with Puffy and how most of the puppet masters, whether these individuals are running our government, the ones that are running the world, like your BlackRock, State Street, Vanguards. These are individuals you never see or hear about, but they are the true puppet masters. So in a similar fashion, in the music business, the same kind of individuals, the puppet masters of the music industry, have been Clive Davis, Jimmy Iovine. Those names sit at the top because, as I said, they helped fund two of the biggest black record labels, rap labels, since the 90s. Jimmy Iovine, Interscope, funded Death Row Records, and of course Arista with Clive Davis, Arista Records, helped fund Bad Boy and help Bad Boy get started. So who is Clive Davis? And there's been a lot of mystery behind him, going all the way back to Whitney Houston's death. And even preceding Whitney Houston, Clive Davis was very influential with Janis Joplin. But what are two of the similarities between Clive Davis and Puffy? Well, both of them are non-musicians. They don't write music. They don't produce music. They don't play instruments. But they're at the top of the record business and have been owners of record companies. And we want to know, how did that happen? Well, we got to talk about Clive before we talk about Puffy, because there would be no Puffy without Clive Davis. And so going into Clive is a 93-year-old Jewish lawyer who is from New York, who went to NYU. He graduated from NYU, New York University, and then he went on to Harvard Law School. So he is a Harvard Law graduate. And from there, he worked for a law firm for a short period of time. And then Clive, in 1967 to about 1973, Clive Davis was the president of Columbia CBS Records. And so that's where his start came into, that's where he started in the music business. How did he arrive directly at the top? He was never a runner. He never worked for free. His law firm represented Columbia Records for a few years, and then he went from the law firm to Columbia CBS Records, and he went straight to the top. So Clive definitely is a benefactor of not what you know, but who you know. And the same thing happened with Puffy. It's not what Puffy knew, is who he knew to get Bad Boy started. He was also, Clive Davis was a founder and started Arista Records, from 1974 to 2000. And then after that, he started J Records from 2002 to 2008. And of course, like I said, Clive Davis is responsible for some of the success of going back as far as Janis Joplin. He signed Earth, Wind, and Fire to Columbia Records in 1972. He's responsible for, or has taken credit for, much of Barry Manilow's career. So you're talking Whitney Houston, Janis Joplin, Barry Manilow, Earth, Wind, and Fire, just to name a few. And so as he was moving up the entertainment music business ladder, once he left Arista, he started J Records. And who are some of the notables that he is responsible for at J Records? So it'd be people like Alicia Keys, Neo, Angie Stone, who just passed here recently, just to name a few. But the key to Clive Davis is his relationship with Puffy. And all of these allegations that Sean Puffy Combs is going through, I think is very similar to the Bill Cosby situation. I think that Cosby situation with the Quaaludes and all that stuff going back into the 60s and 70s, my personal opinion, I think he learned that stuff allegedly from the likes of Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion. Here again, you have a black guy with a white person. Maybe Hugh Hefner could have been Bill Cosby's mentor as far as entertainment is concerned. And then you have, of course, Clive Davis, a white guy who was the mentor to Sean Puffy Combs. And you think it's ironic that Sean Puffy Combs is now being accused of some of the same allegations that Bill Cosby was accused of, whether it's drugging women, this Mann Act law of interstate travel to bring in individuals, male or female, even though the Mann Act law had a lot to do with a black man and a white woman, it's still, there's some very, very good similarities, or not good similarities, but there are some outward similarities between Cosby and Sean Puffy Combs with these allegations. And where did Sean Puffy Combs learn this stuff? This filming of individuals at parties and this so-called, what do you call it, blackmailing of these other entertainment figures. Where did Sean get this from? Sean Puffy Combs. He didn't just think about this in a dream one day. These are learned behaviors. And so getting back to Clive Davis and how his tentacles are all involved in black music and the rap industry, Clive Davis gave Sean Puffy Combs for Bad Boy $65 million in the early 90s. And it makes you wonder, why would this white Jewish lawyer, who's been the president of several record companies, decide to give an unproven young black kid from New York an opportunity to run his own company? Mind you, Sean Puffy Combs does not play one instrument, does not write any music, does not know how to engineer a board. And what was his true talent beside possibly galvanizing and finding talent to bring to his roster at Bad Boy Records? And I've done a video previously to talk about the names of these companies, why these black record labels have such a negative moniker to their names. Bad Boy, Death Row Records, Rough Riders. It makes you wonder, were they speaking this negative spirit into existence? Because Bad Boy Records, the president and founder of that, is history has shown that he has been a bad boy in true reality. And so, but Clive was willing to take a chance on him and give him 65. That is a lot of money. But Clive is also responsible. Now, this is when he was at Arista. So Bad Boy was a subsidiary of Arista. And then also, you got to remember, Clive Davis also funded LaFace Records down in Atlanta. Well, TLC, Usher, Outkast came from. And so that was with Babyface and L.A. Reid. I don't know how many people know about that. So Clive, and I don't know what the actual number was, but it was definitely in the tens of millions. If he gave Puffy, one individual who doesn't play an instrument or write any music, he gave him $60 million, 60 to 65 million. At least L.A. Reid and Babyface not only wrote, they played music, they knew how to engineer, they knew how to run a studio. They were pretty much self-contained. So it makes sense to get into a business agreement with LaFace Records. I don't know why why Clive Davis would arbitrarily want to do a deal with Puffy. And now all of the dirt is coming out in the wash. And people are wondering if Clive has anything to do with this. Well, you got to remember, Clive, when he was at Columbia and CBS Records, he got caught up in a payola scandal for the pay-for-play of records in the radio stations. And of course, that's what they were doing in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and which makes you wonder as a fan, were those records truly hot on their own, or was it force-fed to the consumer by repetition? You hear something long enough and it is being repeated inside your brain. Eventually, you will either like it, love it, hate it, but you're still passively listening to it. So that's where the payola came into it. He got in trouble for that. And there's also been alleged mob ties with Clive Davis in the music business. And of course, we all should know, if you know the history of the music business, that the mafia has been involved in the music business for a very long time. Even Tommy Mottola, who was another gatekeeper at Sony Music Group, is an Italian, had alleged mob ties. If you remember, Michael Jackson called him the devil at one point. And remember, if you also remember, Tommy Mottola was married to Mariah Carey for a short period of time. So all of these things are lining up. And if you're in your 50s like I am, and you go back and look at the 90s and the 80s, and here again, pay for play with payola, it makes you wonder, were those records sustainable? Could those records have been sustainable on their own? Or were they being pushed and shoved down the consumer's throat? Where is the authenticity in the music? You have all these puppet masters that are pushing buttons behind closed doors. And it's going to be interesting to see if Puffy will expose where he learned this negative behavior from. There's been this chasm of a dark cloud over Clive Davis's head for many, many years. Going back to Janis Joplin mysteriously dies of an overdose. Whitney Houston allegedly mysteriously dies of an overdose. Here recently, Angie Stone allegedly passed away from a car accident that had 6 or 7 people in the car and in the vehicle, and she was the only one that didn't make it. She was suing the record company and Clive Davis. There's been a complete pugilance of death and destruction around Clive Davis and around Sean Puffy Combs. You look at the situation with Sean Puffy Combs. You have Craig Mack that passed away recently in the last few years, mysteriously. You had Kim Porter, his ex-wife or the mother of his children who mysteriously died in her home in LA. You had Heavy D that died under suspicious circumstances, allegedly. Andre Harrell has passed away. Notorious B.I.G., Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, he gets gunned down in LA. Shine, the rapper Shine that came out, the Belizean-born rapper Shine, who came out and sounded like Biggie, he gets a gun case and does 10 years in jail, in prison, for an alleged shootout in a nightclub. And many of the witnesses said that Shine did not even shoot the gun. It was Puffy. And so if you look at Clive's situation, multiple mysterious deaths. You also know that these record companies take out life insurance policies on many of these artists. And so Clive, he's got caught up in a payola scandal. He has association with mob ties for many, many years. There has always been a huge amount of controversy related to Clive Davis. And why did Clive Davis decide to adopt Sean Puffy Combs as his son? Not literally adopt him, but if you are the person, a white Jewish man, giving a poor black kid $65 million to start a record company, that's more than just adopting him as a family member. But all roads don't lead to great success, but traveling down that road, there's been a lot of decimation and destruction of humans and even their humanity in the legacy of Clive Davis and of Sean Puffy Combs. And I would say to you that Clive Davis knows where all the bodies are buried and where all the bones are scattered. He has been a puppet master in the music business for a long time, since the early 70s, since the late 60s. You're talking about since 1967 when he started. That's almost 60 years he's been in his business. Very powerful man, has escaped the law, has not gone to prison. I wonder, is Clive Davis still mentoring Sean Puffy Combs to this day? Are they talking at all as a result of this criminal legal issue that Sean Puffy Combs is going through right now? I don't think Clive is too worried about it. He's 93 years old. Most of his life is behind him and not in front of him. Clive could drop dead tomorrow under natural circumstances. But there is a trail and a history of a lot of egregious demonic behavior that has followed Clive Davis for many years, and the same repeat has taken place with Sean Puffy Combs and his demonic detrimental ways that he has treated his artists and other human beings that have been in his circle. So the question is Clive Davis one of the puppet masters in the music business that has turned an industry that was supposed to be about nurturing artists and making great music? Or is he an individual that had his demonic forces be intertwined into the music business for ulterior motives that had nothing to do with putting out great music? That is the question of the day. But Clive Davis is one of the individuals, along with Jimmy Iovine, that should be definitely looked at. And why are their names not ever being mentioned? It makes you question what is the real intent on what's going on with this so-called sex trafficking, drug trafficking, these RICO charges. You're talking about gun violence. You're talking about murder. You're talking about multiple assaults against individuals. Allegedly, that has been a dark cloud around someone like Sean Puffy Combs. And very similar, it's like looking in a mirror, Suge Knight with Death Row Records, which was a subsidiary of Interscope Records. And guess who the puppet master was there? Jimmy Iovine. It's going to be very interesting to see if, when you talk about the cream rising to the top, and most of the time when we use that moniker, we're talking about something good. But is the cream going to rise to the top to expose the demonic forces, as I say, that allegedly Clive Davis and people like Jimmy Iovine have been part of pushing out this negative music in the rap business, and or this large axiom or chasm of death that has taken place throughout their tenure and their legacy in the music business. And I'm talking about Clive Davis in particular, Jimmy Iovine secondarily, and of course Sean Puffy Combs thirdly, and also Suge Knight, who's doing 26 years in prison. Just look at the entire line in the history. And all of this has been done right in front of our eyes and our vision. The music was a distraction. That was to keep you distracted from the real chaos and disruption that was sitting right in your face. And now it is time to pay the piper. Whether it was Bill Cosby and his allegations and his association with Hugh Hefner, who never went to jail, another white male patriarchal individual who sold the image of sex, but never, and he had parties at the Playboy Mansion all the time. As I said, Hugh Hefner had parties at the Playboy Mansion all the time, never got in trouble, cameras everywhere in the Playboy Mansion. Look at the similarities. And Bill Cosby goes down and gets sent to prison based on some of the things I'm sure that he saw and learned at the Playboy Mansion from Hugh Hefner. This whole thing with Diddy and these parties, what do they sound just alike? The Playboy Mansion. Now, I know times have changed from the 60s and 70s into the 2000s, and everything that was done yesterday cannot be done today. But it makes you wonder, well, why haven't any of these white entertainment heads like Hugh Hefner, Jimmy Iovine, Clive Davis, they've never gone to jail. They've never even been indicted. And then you have the black entertainers who are not at the top of the heat, who are not puppet masters, but are being puppeteered. The Bill Cosbys, the Sean Puffy Combs, the Suge Knights of the world, how they have all gotten caught up in the petulance of the court system. And this is not a nuanced thing. This has been going on for a very long time. And it makes you wonder, is there race play involved in this? Clive Davis has been around for 60 years in the music business, and he's one of the untouchables. Puffy has been around for 30 years, 35 years, and he's looking at going to prison for the rest of his life. Bill Cosby, Sean Puffy Combs, R. Kelly, but none of these guys are at the head of these labels and music companies have been touched or gotten any dirt on them whatsoever. It makes you wonder, including the Brothman family. They're heavily involved in the music business, and you hear nothing about them. So what is this all about? These individuals have tentacles and relationships with each other that stretch very far, and the real question is Clive Davis the real puppet master of the demonic forces in the music industry. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience.